Syracuse takes down Virginia Tech. Let's talk about it right here on Locked On Syracuse.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome everyone, Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Yes! Yes, 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 yes. Woo! Everyone happy about last night? How are we feeling? Syracuse takes down Virginia Tech 84-71. It was a wire-to-wire game. Got a little dicey in the second half. But as I said on Twitter, that game felt closer in the second half than it actually was. Syracuse led by at least 7 points the entirety of the second half. See, I also said that Syracuse might be Cinderella, and, well, I don't have a glass slipper. I do have a glass. For those that are listening, I'm holding up a glass cup. Does that work? I don't have anything in it, just a glass cup. I figured it would be a good replacement for a slipper. I don't have a glass slipper. I mean, who owns glass slippers? Whatever. So I have a cup here to symbolize the glass slipper, or really it's a glass cup. And Syracuse finding a way to actually make the NCAA tournament this season. I have it right here. It's on my right as I record this. But man, my big takeaway from this game, aside from the whole bubble talk and everything, depending on the bracketology you use, Syracuse might be a last four in team right now. Or if you're Joe Lunardi, they're probably somewhere in the middle of Antarctica. I don't know. But from this game, sometimes you need your best players to just be your best players. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but you need games where, not everything's falling. Not everything is working on offense. Chris Bell had 7 points. 1 of 8 from 3. It was not his best night. And you know what? That's okay, because for the last month, he's been shooting 50% from 3. Sometimes you need one of those games from your star players. And in this case, Judah Mintz, in what might be his final home game in a Syracuse uniform, stepped up and delivered. And Judah has it going when he hits a three-point shot. He hit one in the first half, and I'm like, oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. You need your best players to be your best players. He had 29 points, 6 assists. He was 10 of 17 from the field, made all of his free throws. Please come back. Please come back, Judah. If you're watching, if you're listening, Judah, please come back. We would welcome you with open arms. We need you. Please don't let that be your last game. You need your best players to be your best players sometimes. Against NC State, Chris Bell has 8 first-half threes. Against Notre Dame, everyone was going. Against North Carolina, everyone was also going, and J.J. Starling might have had the best game of his entire season. Last night, that wasn't the case. Yeah, you had some good performances from some of the support guys, and I'll get to that next. But it came down to Judah Mintz. It came down to Judah. And he made so many big shots down the stretch just to keep it, the lead in arm's distance. Every time you felt that Virginia Tech was coming back, Judah had an answer. And was he great on the defensive end, to be honest with you? No, he wasn't. But if you're going to be bad on defense, at least be making your shots on offense. That's exactly what he was doing. Now, I don't want to discredit the support guys because I thought some of them had a very strong game. And they're going to be crucial down the stretch. Or we're already really down the stretch here. But if Syracuse wants to keep up this magic carpet ride and be Cinderella and somehow come from down in Antarctica to the NCAA tournament, it's going to come down to Judah Mintz. It comes down to Judah. Always has, always will. You need your best players to be the best players. That's what he was against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech kept storming. They kept fighting. You got to give them a little bit of credit here. They kept coming. They were not afraid. They fell behind. And once again, Syracuse let up a lead. And we're going to get to that later in the show. But it was Judah Mintz who had all the responses for this team. All of them. He was sensational. And I can't take anything away from him for this performance. And they need him. I said it over. I said it. They need him. They can't do this without him. Now, they don't need him to score 29 points every single night. That's not what I'm saying. They don't need 29 every night is unsustainable. You can't do that, right? This isn't 2010 Kemba Walker UConn. Or was that 2011? I don't remember off the top of my head. It was either 2010 or 2011, Kemba Walker and the 11-game run for UConn. A little bit off topic, but he must have averaged like 40 points every single game. He was unbelievable for that UConn team, and they ended up winning the national championship because of that. But if Syracuse wants to make this tournament, if Syracuse can make it, they need Judah to beat Judah. They don't need him to score 29. Not saying that. But what they need is when some players are struggling that you're normally counting on, when other guys who you think might give you more aren't quite, JJ Starling had 13. You'd like a little bit more from Starling. 13 is not a bad number, but you'd like a little more. You need someone who can just put the ball in the basket. You need someone who can put the ball in the basket. And that was Judah Mintz. It's going to come down to him. It's going to come down to him. Because when Syracuse needs him, he's got to be there. And last night, he was there. Having said all of that, how we feeling? We're feeling good, right? That was a good win. That's a quad 2 win. Syracuse moved up a few spots in the net. They're still outside the top 80, but the net is not the end-all be-all. Just want to throw that out there. Man, does it feel good that this team actually has a chance. That they actually might just be Cinderella. They can do it. But if they want to do it, if they can be Cinderella, Judah Mintz has got to be there when this team needs him most. Now, let's not take anything away from the support guys either, and we'll talk about that after this. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Now, I use Gametime, and I love that I can see the view from my seat before I buy. And hey, how about using the Gametime app to support Syracuse on the road for the last 2 games of the regular season at Louisville on Saturday, Clemson on Tuesday. Syracuse needs all the support it can get from you guys. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, to Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, recapping Syracuse's 84-71 victory over Virginia Tech last night. Syracuse is a wildly entertaining team. How about that? Starting to put themselves back into the bubble conversation. And I outlined it on Tuesday about how Syracuse can make the tournament, and here's the path. And yet, they completed step 1. Now, we talked about Judah Mintz and how he was great and how he delivered for this team last night when this team really needed him, especially down the stretch. But let's talk about the support guys. The support guys. And who are the support guys? I think the better way to phrase it is role players, right? Because I don't really consider, Starling is a support guy, but he's, he's the second option on the team. He's the second option on the team, and his performance, to be honest with you, was kind of uneventful, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I'm just saying, he had 13 points. Nothing really stuck out too much. He just was typical J.J. Starling, which is not a bad thing at all. He didn't go off, but he also didn't have a bad performance. So we'll take that every day from J.J. Starling. The support guys that I'm talking about, Chris Bell, Quadir Copeland, Kyle Cuff, Malik Brown, all those guys. Justin Taylor. I didn't mention him, right? Basically, everyone else that is not Judah Mintz and J.J. Starling. Listen, Chris Bell did not have it going. It's the first time in a while he didn't really have it going. He didn't. And you can't expect him to always have it every night from the field. He's not going to make every shot. He's not going to keep up a 50% rate from the three-point line. It's just not sustainable. You can't do it. The law of averages exists. I've said that before on the show, and I'll say it again. Anyone that tells you that the law of averages is not actually real is lying. The law of averages is real. Eventually, everything comes back down to earth. And last night, Chris Bell on offense came back down to earth. He only had 7 points, right? He couldn't make a three. He was 1 of 8, I believe, from 3. 1 of 8, yeah. He had that one corner 3 in the second half early in it. But I thought one of the biggest plays of the game was Chris Bell playing defense. Chris Bell has that block towards the end of the second half, basically pins the ball to the backboard. And that was huge. Because after that, Syracuse goes down the other end and scores. Now, I want to make sure I get the numbers correct when he made that block, because I believe it was a 9-point game when he made it. Yes, it was a 9-point game. It was a 9-point game. Chris Bell blocks the guy from Virginia Tech, pins the ball basically on the backboard. Syracuse goes down the other end, and Quadir Copeland makes a layup, and the lead is back down, or the lead's back up to 11 with about 6-ish minutes to go. That's those little things right there, that even when your shot is not falling, you can still make an impact on the game. You can still play great defense. You can still make a great block and then spring a fast break the other way. That's a 4-point swing right there. Virginia Tech had cut it to 7, right? At that point, it was a 9-point game. At that point, it was 9. So if Virginia Tech makes that basket, it would have once again been down to 7. But he makes that block. Outlet pass the other way. It's back up to double digits. And we can kind of breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief that Syracuse is going to hang on and win, which, of course, they did. So you can still make an impact when your shot is not falling. Now, a couple of other guys who made a nice impact on this game, Kyle Cuff and Justin Taylor. You can't ask for much more than what Kyle Cuff and Justin Taylor gave. You can't really ask for anything more. They combined for 11 points in 40 minutes. They were efficient. They brought good defense. They brought toughness. You can't ask for more. Kyle Cuff had a 3-pointer in the first half. Everything was going right again in the first half. Everything. He made a 3 in the first half. You can't ask for anything more, really, from those guys. All you're asking from Kyle Cuff and Justin Taylor, you don't need them to be stars. What you're asking for is, can you play good defense? Can you be tough? And can you just chip in a little bit of offense? What did they do last night? They played good defense. They were tough. And they combined for 11 points. Again, that's all you need. You don't need much more from those guys. We're not asking them to be superstars here. We're not asking them to carry the load on offense. Sure, and if they can have a game where they go off, that's great, but we don't need that. We got plenty of other guys who can score. Play defense, be tough, and just chip in a little bit of offense. Just give a little bit. That's it. That's all they need. Now, Malik Brown, he was great on offense. He led the team in rebounds, 12 and 8. Wasn't very good on defense. It happens. It happens. Malik Brown's one of the best defenders in the ACC. He did not have a good night on that end last night, but there's a way to make up for that. There's a way to make up for that. Okay, you didn't have a great defense. You weren't great on the defensive end. Well, what did you do on offense? Well, you had 12 points and you also got 8 rebounds and you were 6 of 7 from the field. There you go. There you go. You can't really be that mad at that. It's kind of like the inverse of Chris Bell, where Chris Bell doesn't have much going from offense, but makes a critical defensive play. And Malik Brown, who was not great on defense all night, has a very nice offensive game, was efficient from the field, and leads the team in rebounds with 8. And perhaps the number one role player on this team, Quadir Copeland. That dunk was gross in the first half. You guys know what dunk I'm talking about. That two-hand flush, it goes whoosh. I tweeted out, takeoff. It's Quadir Copeland. He was Quadir Copeland. So overall, it wasn't the most complete performance by the role players in this one. Wasn't the most complete. Everyone had their ups and everyone had their downs. But when it all evened out, when the playing field was level, they all, in the end of the day, made the same impact as usual, which is a good enough impact. So when you have Judah Mintz going, and J.J. Starling gives his typical 10 to 15 points, in this game he gave 13, and your role players are overall a net positive, that's a recipe for a 13-point win on your home floor against a pretty good Virginia Tech team that's also trying to get back on the bubble. Again, I can't really complain much. I'm just so freaking happy. I can't really complain. I still have that glass with me. Is Syracuse really going to be Cinderella? They're really going to do this? You know, there's nothing worse in sports than false hope. Nothing worse in sports than false hope. And I just hope that this is not false hope. I hope that they actually have a chance on Selection Sunday. I think we're going to leave this glass here on the table for the rest of the season. We'll just see how it goes. It'll just sit right here on my right. Can't really show you guys. It's off the screen, and I'd have to move my computer. But it's going to sit to my right every time I record an episode from now until the end of the season. Or actually, I take that back. It'll just be on this table because I won't be in Syracuse for the next week and a half starting next week. Conversation for a different day. Episodes will still come out. There will still be episodes every Monday through Friday. Just won't be in Syracuse. Anyways, I went a little bit off topic there. That's enough from the role players. They had themselves a good game. But the second half, once again, Syracuse putting the fear of God into us. Let's talk about those second half struggles, shall we? Right after this. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. And hey, all I'm saying, a little bit off topic here, but let's talk about some Syracuse football, shall we? And head coach Fran Brown. Well, how much do you really believe in them? Well, you can put your money where your mouth is because right now on FanDuel, the Syracuse's odds to win the ACC is plus 4,200. You can get in on that right now on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back, everyone. Syracuse took down Virginia Tech last night, 84-71. I'm Jackson Holzer here on Locked On Syracuse. And once again, it was kind of a tale of two halves. Now, this one was definitely more minor than the other ones. Definitely more minor. I definitely wasn't as scared for this one as I was for the last couple of games against Notre Dame and against NC State. I thought that Syracuse really had a firm grip on this game. And then even when Virginia Tech was coming back, it felt like Syracuse wasn't really going to blow it. But once again, I believe Syracuse led by as much as 21. It was in the beginning of the second half when Starling hit a left wing three, put him up 21. And the Hokies cut it to 7. So what was the problem again? What was the problem? Well, it was the defense. And I kind of alluded to it on last segment here about Malik Brown. Malik Brown did not have a very good game. He didn't. He just didn't. He didn't have it on defense, I should say. He didn't have the defensive performance that you would have liked from Malik Brown. I guess it happens. It happens. I mean, Lynn Kidd took him to school. A couple times he was backing him down. Hook shot right over him, good. He was a little bit late on rotations. Poteet got him too. He wasn't great on the defensive end. And to be honest with you, no one was that great on the defensive end. Judah Mintz a couple times at the top of the key, couldn't stop the ball handler. And what's like the #1 rule in basketball when a team is in transition? Stop the ball. Whoever has the ball, stop the ball. And Syracuse couldn't really do that. You got to stop the ball. I don't think it was an effort thing. I truly don't. I don't think it was just bad effort. I think it was more of maybe they were a little bit tired. Maybe they were a little bit fatigued. And perhaps it was maybe Virginia Tech. Once again, you got to give the other team credit, showing a little bit of pride and not giving up in a game because the game is not over. Now, having said that, as annoying as it was, Virginia Tech scored 27 first half points, 44 in the second half. The Hokies, at the end of the game, when the game was somewhat in doubt with around 4 minutes to go, Syracuse at the end of the day buckled down on defense. They did. At the end of the game, they buckled down. I believe there was a 3-minute stretch. It was a 3-minute stretch from about the 3:50 mark when Virginia Tech hit 69 points, and then less than a minute to go, they finally scored again. But again, Syracuse held Virginia Tech to no points in a 3-minute period at the end of the game. They found a way to get it done. So this is now 3 straight games of not being great in the second half, particularly on defense. But once again, finding a way to get the job done. And I know people are going to come at me and saying, is that a sustainable strategy? And the answer is no. You would like a complete 40 minutes. But at the same time, it does help if you go up 18 at the end of a half, right? If you have a phenomenal first half, like they've had the last 3 games, it's very hard for the other team to come back. So we can be mad that they can't put together 2 complete halves. But if the first half is so dominant, they don't have to be perfect in the second half. Now, it could bite them if they play a better team. Even when they were playing Notre Dame, they'd almost bit them. Notre Dame's not that great. But at the end of the day, they won. They won, and Syracuse ended up winning by 13. They ended up winning by 13. All right, so what? They got outscored by 5 in the second half. Virginia Tech cut it to 7. Defense wasn't great. Malik Brown didn't have a great defensive game. Judah Mintz couldn't stop the ball. All right, it happens. But they won by 13. It was pretty much a blowout. It was like once again, I tweeted this out. It felt closer than the score actually was. And that was because we're all thinking to ourselves, here we go again. Here we go again with this team and blowing a second half lead. But they didn't really fully blow it like the other 2 games or the last 2 games. They kind of always had a distance on Virginia Tech. So listen, if they can continue the dominant first halves, fine. I don't expect them to do that for another 20 minutes. But at the end of the day, when you look at the totality of the game, I think you should be pretty pleased with the outcome of it. So that is it for today's episode here on Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. I will drop my Twitter and the Locked On Syracuse Twitter below in the description. Thank you guys so much for listening. Click that like button. Click that subscribe button if you like this content. And, of course, we'll be back on Thursday.